back on it, back on it. Our last podcast was about. It feels like we've been doing Black Panther stuff for a while. I don't know why. It just does. But
Yeah.
why is that?
We delayed recording Black Panther, and then we saw What If about Black Panther, and now we're actually recording Black Panther.
Recording Black Panther. Yeah, right. It's a long time coming. Probably one of the most popular Marvel movies they've ever made, and in an interesting way, probably the most accurate to the comics.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we'll talk more about that, of course. I got plenty of shows.
So, like, this overall story comes straight from the comics, or just like all the details are pretty accurate?
Every detail is accurate to the comics. Every single detail is accurate to the comics. And so once that happens, the story itself, you can envision it happen in the comics as well.
Okay.
There's a couple different things that aren't accurate to the comics, like little things here and there, but the overall, like, I would say 85 to 90% of it is from the comics, which really surprised me when I was doing research. Really surprised me.
Okay, cool. In this movie, I learned that there's a Vibranium Meteorite that impacted the Earth, like, I guess, tens of thousands of years ago. And
yep, about 100,000. About 100,000.
500,000. Okay.
100. About 100. Yeah. Vibranium. Okay. That is a truth. That is a thing. It's a true thing that actually happened.
In the comics.
100%. Yes, that's definitely happened. Vibranium was introduced into the Marvel comics I had it right here, 1964, if I'm not mistaken, in Fantastic Four number 53. So they actually introduced in Daredevil number 13. But then it was officially announced in Fantastic Four number 53 in 1966.
Why did they invent vibranium for the comics? What did they start using that for?
I think for a couple different reasons. Like, I think from a comic book storytelling perspective, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby wanted to make an African country be like Shangri-La, sort of like a mystical place that's hidden that everybody wants to find. Okay. And that's the kind of the where the Black Panther idea came from, like a place that has like incredible technology, and like there's of course there's a racial components in there, and we'll probably bring those up in a little bit, but it's like incredible technology in a place you wouldn't expect it. And so I think after a while they started thinking, okay, how can we create, like, what created this special ability? What created these amazing things? And so Vibranium kind of came up. And so at first I think Vibranium was kind of like a catch-all. So like it was first called anti-metal, but then it kind of eventually figured out what it could do. And there's no metal like that in the real world. So it's like it's a pretty cool invention. Like, what would it be like if we had a metal that by nature could absorb energies? Like, it would change our entire society. Like, vibrations is probably one of the things that destroy technology and causes problems, and that's one of the things that we'd have to adjust constantly. Like cars, if you have a vibranium car, then a car would pretty much last forever because it wouldn't ever like shake apart or need fixing. And so
car crashes would be
nothing
much easier.
Yeah, car crashes would be like boom, and you wouldn't feel it. So it would change our entire society. And so if you imagine if you had a metal like that, everybody would want it. So there you go.
Okay.
So vibranium. It's really neat. I think it's somewhat overused, just in the movies itself and everything else. But it's fun. So, but again, it's not the only special metal in the Marvel comics. There's many other special metals. The only
other one I know of is adamantium.
Yeah, adamantium is probably the most well known. I was doing my research for this podcast. I was trying to figure out when they would introduce adamantium into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. So, unfortunately,
whenever the X-Men come,
whenever
that happens.
But Wolverine's not the only one that has adamantium. Just to be clear.
Well, he's the only one I know of. So.
He's the most well known. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
What else you got?
I have a note about 5 tribes. I don't know if that's super significant, but are there 5 tribes in Wakanda? Or is there anything important about them?
In the comics, there are tribes. The Chubari tribe is the one. It's like the tribe that protects like the border regions. That's a tribe that's been in the comics for quite a while, since the 60s.
That's helpful. Yeah, tell me more about that. Like, are the tribes like regional in Wakanda?
Yeah, it's like you gotta think about it. So like, I would think about it as like the movie insinuated that they were like banking tribes, they were like merchant tribes, they were like technology tribes. The Jubari tribe was in charge of Jabari tribe is in charge of protecting the borders. And so they're
Hmm.
not they're not regional as much as it's like functional, right? Like
Right.
this
Okay.
tribe is in charge of this. This tribe is in charge of there's a mining tribe, and so each tribe is in charge of a certain thing.
So that
So it's
tribe that protects the borders, are they outside of the like
Yes, they're
cloak?
outside of like the so Wakanda in the comics and in the movies has like a big like dome over it, right?
Hmm.
And like it's like it kind of hides the main part of the country, and the Jabari tribe is outside of it. So if like you were a stranger and you wanted to walk into Wakanda, but you didn't know, of course you didn't know that was a crazy technological place, then you would meet the Jabari tribe and they would like probably talk to you and probably tell you to get out of here, you know. So it's like
Okay.
they probably look quote unquote like a normal African tribe, but they're just kind
Right.
of hiding out. Yeah. Mm-mm.
Can they travel freely into the really technological part of
Oh yeah.
Wakanda?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so they
Yeah.
benefit from all that. They're not like subjugated and
No. No. Well, everybody's subjugated because they have a monarchy. Monarchy? Is it monarchy? Yeah. Because they have a
yeah,
monarchy. But yeah.
it's
But they have. But
seemingly it's a benevolent monarchy, I guess. I
yeah.
don't know.
Well, yeah. It's not always been, but it is. But
Mm.
in
And
the
it's not hereditary based, so that's another good thing about it if you're gonna have a monarchy.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Jabari tribe can go in and out of the main country as much as they want, and they interact with people like that. So yeah, they're not like slaves or anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, we had lots of questions about that because we see, Wakanda's hidden,
Hmm.
obviously, and I'm gonna say we, I mean my family. Wakanda's hidden, but then we see in the movie there's like clearly what look to be, I'm going to use this word for lack of a better term, primitive people. They're in Wakanda. And so it's like, well, is that in Wakanda? Is that outside of Wakanda? So that's the
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
Jabari tribe you're talking about.
yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it wouldn't say primitive, more like agricultural or rural areas. So like they had like you saw like the huts and stuff like that. So that's like what you would consider to be like more rural Africa.
Right.
And so like yeah, and that's kind of a ruse because that way if you like remember Wakanda has to be hidden. So if like anybody kind of walked up and saw the Jabari tribe sort of like hanging out, they wouldn't
They'd be
think,
like,
okay,
oh,
this is
okay, yeah,
a
this is, backwoods Africa. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. That helps out a lot. I do like how I guess technology has worked its way into the Wakandan culture in this movie.
Mhm.
And it makes me wish that ours was more like that, where
What do you mean?
they still have I don't know, man. It seems like their technology isn't supplanting like natural things. I don't know. It just seems like they have a better relationship with technology in Wakanda than we do in America, at least.
I think
Um,
yeah, I
there's a
think
good blend of like natural life and having technology, and it's not like totally supplanting it. I don't know.
no, I think
That's
yeah,
just
if
the
you
vibe I got from seeing the scenes in Wakanda, like the villages and all the people in the streets and
yeah,
all that.
I actually I wish that we saw more of that because
Hmm.
like it's obvious that this country has had vibranium for a very long time and they've integrated it very thoroughly into the societies and
Right.
used it to solve a lot of problems. Like if you like they did a great fly through when
Hmm.
the ship was flying in and it looked so green and lush, but also it
Right.
looked like these buildings were like kind of the buildings were created around the natural structures instead of like invading it and destroying it. So it
Hmm.
felt like it felt like a place that you could go to and just be amazed, like, "What are you guys doing? This place is amazing," you know? And
Hmm.
I think they really thought like, okay, if these people had vibranium for this long and they cultivated it and used it like this, then it would be different than if Americans did it, you know? And like you gotta
Hmm.
remember too that the United States is a very young country. So like we're still trying to figure things out. But Wakanda is like, as far as the mythos, is very old. So it's like more
Hmm.
of a European type of deal, right? And so They've been around a long time, and all their technology and their architecture has been around a long time too.
All right, cool. Um, I have this note. Not really. This isn't using your comics knowledge, but I'm sure other people are going to have this question. Um, I think it's Killmonger in here or somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody refers to the uh, Dora Milaje. Am I saying that right?
Dora Milaje. Dora Milaje.
Dora Milaje. Somebody refers to them as looking like Grace Jones.
Yeah.
And my wife had no idea who Grace Jones was. I tried to explain it. I didn't do a good job.
What?
My frame of reference was Grace Jones is the woman that was in James Bond with Roger Moore.
Yeah.
She's like this really buff looking black woman.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, she's amazing.
What is your what? How can you explain who Grace Jones is to the people
that's an accurate
also
description.
haven't heard? Okay.
That's an accurate description. She was very popular in the 80s. She was in a James Bond movie, but she's in other stuff as well. She was a model. I think she married someone famous, or at least dated someone famous. I forget who it is, but she was famous in and of herself.
Yeah. All right, so you don't have any good references other than my James Bond one?
No, that's the best one. But no, Grace Jones was like when she was a Jamaican American model. When she was around, like when she was big in the 80s, she was like unapologetically like tall, like buff, like bald. Like her skin was very dark, but she was like, "This is who I am. If you don't like it, so what?" And and I think everybody respected that. And so when you think about Grace Jones, it's like, whoa, it's kind of funny the person who said that in the movie was Eric Killmonger's father's friend at the time.
Okay.
And when he said that, so it's a good reference to the time period because they were in the late 80s at the time. But also too, it's like the Dora Milaje.
I think it was like 1992.
Yeah, but the Dora Milaje, they were definitely like unapologetically like black. Like it's hard to explain. It's interesting you brought that up and talk about the Dora Milaje and Grace Jones. It's like because a lot of African American culture and African American like stylings, especially from like the 40s to the 70s and 80s, was predicated on the idea of looking more like European and Caucasian, right? And so like African Americans, we have natural kinky hair, but we used to use, a lot of people still do, but you use chemicals to straighten your hair. Like if you look at Michael Jackson, he actually used surgeries to lighten his skin, and like Grace Jones did not do that, right? And so it was actually not a stigma, but it was more like it was like in 2021. It's not odd for an African American or an African to be completely fine with their culture and who they are and unapologetic and just being who they are. But back then, like in the late 80s, early 90s, it was still sort of taboo in a weird way. I don't think people talked about it as much, but it was easier for a black person to exist if they tried to be a little more European Caucasian than like super African. So it's actually really cool you make that. It's kind of cool now we talk about that they made that reference in the movie and you bring it up because like Grace Jones is a great example of a person who's like, this is who I am. I'm not going to change for you just because you're not comfortable with me. And like, and at Dora Milaje, he definitely feel the same way. So that, it's a pretty good reference.
Okay, cool. What's up with these lip tattoos?
That is, so I don't know the history of it completely, but I know some African cultures do have lip tattoos as well. So it's like I think it was a callback or sort of like not callback, but sort of like a way like a Easter egg, maybe not a good one. It's just a way to connect African cultures to Wakanda culture. So when they were making this movie, they like did a lot of research into different African cultures, and they kind of picked and chose because Wakanda is now a real place, right? And so they had to create it from scratch. And so like all the hairstyles you see, the clothing you're seeing, the architecture, the murals, the art, it's all from different African cultures. They kind of piece together. And so with the lip tattoos, I'm not 100% sure which African country does that, but it's not uncommon for people to have a lip tattoo. It's very painful, by the way.
I would imagine, yeah.
But also, now I'm thinking about it, it was a way for them to say I'm Wakandan without showing people that they're Wakandan. So it's like, again, they had to hide who they were. And so, like, by making a lip tattoo, it's like, this is, I'm going to reveal to you who I am. And it's also a good storytelling element because at some point, when Eric showed the tattoo to them, so they proved that he was a Wakandan, because that's vibranium in their lips.
Mm.
And so, again, it was a way to kind of show who they were without the rest of the world of knowing who they were. I keep
Okay.
looking at Grace Jones pictures. I'm going to spend most. I'm sorry. I'm going to spend most of the day looking at Grace Jones pictures. She was amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
All right. So that lip tattoos comes from the comics.
No, it's not from the
No.
comics.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we. I guess it's a good storytelling device, and like who's really Wakandan and who isn't. And
Yeah, it's great storytelling. It's great.
But-
It's brilliant, actually.
But Killmonger got the tattoo when he was in America, not in Wakanda. So
His
that was
father gave it to him. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess probably anybody's able to make those tattoos. You just need to have the vibranium and know what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but nobody would, right? So only Wakandans would know what it is. And I'm sure there's probably a way that they could verify it through some kind of, like, the Wakandans could probably verify if that tattoo is really theirs or somebody made it up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. In this movie, they say that the Western world. Well, they talk about how the Western world thinks that Wakanda is the poorest country.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're at the UN, and someone says that.
Yeah.
I thought it was hidden.
Well, it's
so people know about it.
Well, yeah, so you can't hide geography. Like, when you look at a map, you can tell that there's a landmass there called Wakanda. So the country itself is there, but it looks like a cheap, poor country, right? Like, it looks like
they hide their technological center, but the country, people know the country's Wakanda, like it has borders.
Exactly.
Okay.
So people know it's there, right? And I'm sure the African countries around Wakanda have a hint of something special there, but the rest of the world has no idea. And I mean, it's important to understand that if you look at the history of colonization in the world, if Europeans knew that there was a country with a massive amount of magical metal, then Wakanda there would have been crazy wars fought over it. Then Wakandan people would have been subjugated. They would have stolen all of it. And like it would have been like sent all across the world. Like it would have been a completely different place, And so I think it's a good storytelling element, but it's also a way to talk about like the destruction that European colonization from Portugal and Spain and France and Britain did to African countries, because they just went in there and took stuff,
Yeah, and these days it is for magic metal most of the time.
Yeah, 100%.
Those precious heavy metals.
That's become more and more rare. Recycle your phones. Recycle your iPhones.
Right. Yep.
What else you got?
Okay. How long in this movie has T'Challa had the power of the Black Panther? Isn't that passed down from king to king?
Yeah, there is actually a deleted scene from Black Panther that talks about this. There was a time where his father got too old to do it, and then he gave the Black Panther medal to T'Challa, his son, but he kept the kinghood. And then when his father was assassinated in Captain America: Civil War, then T'Challa went for the kinghood as well. So, like, you can be Black Panther and not be king, but but typically the Black Panther is also king. But in this way, like his father was gotten so old that he couldn't be Black Panther anymore, so T'Challa took it over.
Okay, that makes sense. So T'Challa had the Black Panther in what movie was it?
Captain America: Civil War.
Captain America: Civil War.
So I'm thinking he was probably T'Challa. T'Challa was probably Black Panther for at least 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And if you look
and his father had no longer been using that flower.
Yes, the heart-shaped herb. Yeah, he had his son do it because the country needs a Black Panther to guard it, right? So someone has to do it, and so his son took it. Yeah.
Okay. So they show us the ritual where T'Challa or someone would become the Black Panther, by drinking from that herb. Um, as part of that, they bury them in red dirt. Can
Mhm.
you tell us anything about that red dirt?
It's not in the comics, and it's more of a what I think of it is sort of like a way to kind of like it's like a callback to sort of death and rebirth, right? Because like when you die, they bury you, and then when you can come back to life. So like when in the first battle scene when he had to fight Umbaka and he got seriously wounded, he was stabbed several places. He took the herb, they buried him, and then when he came back up, he was completely healed. Right. And so I think it's more of a ritual type deal. I don't think you absolutely need to do it. Um,
Mm,
but it's more like a sort of like a callback to like the idea of rebirth, right? I wish I did more research on that, but there's not much there. I do think it's actually a cool visual where like he was covered in red dirt, and then when he was in the snow, he was covered in the snow. So I think it's just that kind of like look cool,
ah, yeah, they just
right?
needed to cover him with something. That's right. Hmm,
Yeah.
okay.
So, but yeah, it's just kind of like a cool little thing to talk about how like, cause like once like he's covered up, then he's healing, he's changed, and then when he comes back up, he's different. So it actually makes a lot of sense when you look at like ritual, like death rituals and stuff like that. It makes a lot of sense.
Hmm. Okay, cool. These somebody at Marvel, probably several people, must really like the Bond movies. Black Widow that we watched was kind of modeled, like the entire movie was kind of modeled after a Bond movie. In this one, um, T'Challa's sister kind of acts like Q from a Bond movie would. She's the genius in charge of all of his gazmos and widgets. Is that from the comics, or is that something from the they did for the movie?
That's so it's all about the guy in the chair and the guy in the van. I don't know where it's came from, but there's always been a place where you had the agent out in the field and you had someone in the van or behind a computer desk talking to them. It's
Hmm.
realistic because they do that in real life because I'm an expert ninja spy, so I know all this stuff.
Right.
But from a storytelling perspective, every TV show, every video game, every movie has that kind of dynamic, right? A guy in a chair doing logistics, the guy out there doing the actual tough ninja stuff. So in the comics, yeah, it's always been that way too. So, but I mean, James
Is it
Bond
his
does it.
sister
No,
in
his
the
in
comics?
in the comics, his sister actually does a lot of stuff with him. We can talk about Shuri in a second. But that dynamic that there's a logistics person and then there's an actual person doing the actual heavy lifting spy stuff. That's not a comic book thing. That's just a storytelling modern media type deal. It's like everybody does that, which is getting kind of old to me. Like it's always like that. But I mean,
Hmm.
it serves a lot. It serves some cool purposes. So it is what it is.
The scene where she walks him through her lab and kind of shows off all of the
That is very
gadgets is
Bondish. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can tell they want this to be sort of like a James Bond type of movie, 100%. They want, and I think I'm pretty sure that Marvel wanted. I think I read this somewhere that Marvel wanted the Black Panther to be their James Bond. You know, to have him do spy movie stuff.
Hmm,
Um, but unfortunately, when Chadwick passed away, they probably have to change what they want to do.
right. Well, I mean, they could still treat it like Bond and recast. I don't know.
They're not going to recast him. They already said they're not going to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think everybody kind of knows what they're going to do with that, but I'm not sure if they. I'm still not sure they're going to actually do it. We'll have to just wait and see.
Right.
In traditional in the comics, T'Challa at some point gives up being the Black Panther, and he gives the Black Panther mantle to his sister Shuri. She becomes Black Panther.
Aha.
So
Okay.
she could do it. I'm not the biggest fan of that actress. Hopefully, that's not going to get me murdered because some people love her. But I'm not
Letitia
the
Wright.
Yeah, she's fine, but, like, when I look at the Black Panther, like, I'm looking at somebody a little more athletic, you know, a little more physical, and, like, she's just kinda skinny. So
Hmm.
maybe they'll buff her up, maybe she'll go to those gyms we talked about last time. Um,
Right.
but, you know, we'll just have to wait and see. Like, no one has any idea what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
None. That we all only thing we know is they're working on it now. They're not filming it, they are, writing it, so we just gotta wait. Who knows?
Okay. Cool. Kimoyo beads.
Yes.
Can you tell us about those?
They're traditional African beads. Like if you look at like the different traditional African cultures, they have those beads. The specialness of those beads isn't in the comic books. That was a movie thing.
Okay.
They're really cool though. I like how they work. Like they worked in so many different weird ways. Like you can take them apart and use them for healing. You could use them for spying. You know, you can use them for like conversation, like a phone. It was very complicated how they worked, and
Yeah.
everybody had them. So it's like, look, I have this bead that does this a lot of different things. You know, and they never really explained it, but I thought it was pretty cool. It was obviously really really cool.
Yeah. All right, we talked about him a little bit already. Killmonger is our bad guy for this movie. He's a son of a Wakandan, born in, is it L.A.? No, Oakland.
Yes, Oakland. So in the movie, T'Challa's uncle goes to America to spy on Americans, ends up falling in love with an American woman and has a kid. In the comics, Eric was kidnapped out of Wakanda during an attack, and he was sent. He traveled the world and ended up eventually coming back to Wakanda. So it's a little different. I think I like the movie version a tad bit better, but not by much. But they're pretty accurate. But in the comics, the reasoning about Eric's anger is far less fleshed out in the comics than it is in the movies. I think that in the movies they explained and built up very well why Eric was so angry and why he did all the stuff that he did. He's a pretty fleshed out villain, to be honest with you. If you can, I mean, he's just emotionally hurt. You know, like his father was murdered, and the guy who murdered him is like dead now, but his son's now king, and nobody knows who he is, and the entire culture forgot about him and left him. You know, and so like and then he was twisted, and he ended up becoming like a mercenary, which darkened his heart, and all of a sudden he's like just kind of caught up in this wave of destruction and pain, and he can't get out of it. You know, it's actually tragic. It's actually very sad. Like every time I watch the movie, I'm like, this is sad. It's not like I'm never happy when he ends up being killed at the end. I'm just like, you know, unfortunately, we couldn't find a better way to deal with this. But well,
right. Yeah, he was a good character.
Yeah, he did a great job. Michael B. Jordan did a wonderful job as Killmonger. Wonderful job. There's rumors that he's going to be in the next Black Panther, even if he's dead. And my thinking is, because he was Black Panther, he is going to be in that astral plane with the other dead Black Panthers. He's going to exist there anyway. So at some point, he's going to be there, which is going to be really neat to see.
That'd be weird. Okay. All right.
What did you think of him as a villain? What did you and your family think of him as a villain?
He's good. I mean, you're right. He's a really fleshed out character. And he's pretty evil. So,
I mean, he's evil in the sense that he uses violence to get what he wants, right? And he kills innocent people.
I think like the worst thing that he did in the movie was when he shot his girlfriend, I guess.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I don't know if that's the worst thing, but it was a bad thing. Like, it's obvious, like this woman loved him. She trusted him, and he just killed her very coldly to get what he wants. You know,
right?
Yeah,
right,
100%.
But yeah, he was a good character. I think the origin story made sense.
Yeah, it made pretty good sense. I think it was a little convoluted in some ways, but it made pretty good sense. It's interesting because the movie wanted to talk about the African diaspora and talk about how African Americans have been separated from Africa and how like the two cultures have been like separated and how it caused complications. But the movie never really came down and said what it really wanted to say, or it didn't really know what it wanted to say. Makes sense. And like this is a classic conversation that African Americans have had for hundreds of years, right, or decades, or whatever. It's like, are we African Americans? Are we Americans? Or are we from our descendants, and are we more African? And like, I don't think that question can be answered in this podcast. But I think the movie, Yeah, but I don't think the movie really wanted to answer it either. You know, it's like because like
Yeah.
the American African American that did show up ended up being like twisted and mangled, you know, as a person.
Hmm.
So they really didn't know what to say. I kind of wish they had another African American in the movie to give us a different perspective.
A balance. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been great. That would have been really, really great. And they could have done that, but whatever. I'm criticizing the movie that made like gazillion billion dollars.
Yeah. I don't have anything else, so let's dip
What?
into some of your stuff. What do you want to tell us about
There's
this?
so much to go over.
I've got the only thing that I have left is credit, yeah, mid credit and end credit scenes.
Okay, well we've got how much time we got? Okay, we got look, we got so much time.
Got
All
some
right,
time.
so I'm gonna go over. So I'm going to kind of this. I have my list of show notes.
Are you going to talk about the music at all? Because I do have an interesting tidbit as far as the music goes.
Go ahead, go ahead. I have it in my
Okay.
show notes, but go ahead.
Previously, we were talking about how Shang-Chi is going to be coming out soon. And
Yes.
I was like, man, I really hope that the RZA does the soundtrack for it. And you
Mhm.
had a good point. Well, you know, this movie's all about like Asian people. Maybe they should have an Asian person do the soundtrack. And I was like, yeah, that'd be good. But, you know, at the same time, at least give the RZA like a few tracks on the soundtrack. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But the interesting thing about this is I had assumed that there was a black person that did the score for this movie, but there wasn't.
Yeah, so
Kendrick Lamar did, like, he worked with all of the needle drop music for the movie. So like
yeah.
the music where it's like recordings, you could go to Apple Music and listen to the song.
Mhm.
Even before the movie came out, maybe in some cases.
The Black Panther soundtrack is I put a link in there, the Spotify link if you want to listen to it, which is it's a great soundtrack.
But the score was done by a Swedish guy.
Yeah, 100%. I think he might have got an award for that.
I think he did. He's really good. His name is like I don't know. Anyway, it's his initials are LG. I can't remember his name right now, but he did I think he did some music for the TV show Community, and that's where he met Donald Glover, and
Yes,
he
his
did
name's
a lot of the music production for Childish Gambino.
His
The
name's
guy that did the score for this.
Ludwig Göransson. Ludwig
Yeah,
Göransson.
yeah.
Yeah, so like I don't mind that. I don't think anybody else minds that either because it's so good. The score is so good. And I think that Marvel did a really good job of saying, okay, this is the score, but we're going to have Kendrick Lamar do the soundtrack, you know, and I think
Mhm.
everybody's fine with that. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah,
Ludwig
I mean,
said that I think he and his girlfriend went to Africa for like several months before
you'd have to, right?
doing any of the score to try to soak up what what kind of instruments were used, the different types of percussion and melody and things like that.
I mean, yeah, not just the soundtrack and the score, but also like the movie production as well. Like a lot of people spent years, like a lot of African experts, a lot of people from the culture. They went down there and spent a lot of time down there. I mean, they kind of had to because this movie was so big that anybody who understands African culture. Remember, Africa is the biggest continent on the planet, so there's lots of people that live there. And so, like, if there was any kind of mistakes, people would have found it in 3 seconds. You know.
Mhm.
So I think they did an excellent job making sure that all the details were covered.
Right.
And yeah, I mean the score is done by a Swiss guy, but it's really good. So yeah, who cares? Maybe
Yeah, it's really good.
RZA will do some stuff for Shang-Chi. You should be able to look it up and see if it is. The Shang-Chi's about to come out.
Yeah, they're probably still keeping that stuff under wraps.
All right, so I have my show notes here. I'm just going to run down my show notes and talk about everything we haven't touched on yet. And it's a
Okay.
lot. Are you ready?
Yep. Let's do
All
it.
right, so T'Chaka, Black Panther, T'Challa's father, T'Chaka, is from the comics. He has been around for a very long time. I think since the '60s.
Was he the first Black Panther?
He wasn't the first, but he was the first one in the comics. Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah.
And guess who killed him?
Killmonger?
No, it was Ulysses Klaue.
Oh,
He killed him.
okay.
Yeah, and so we'll get to him in a second. Yeah, where he is right here. So Ulysses Klaue in the comics, Ulysses Klaue tried to steal some vibranium. There was a
Mhm.
huge fight. T'Challa as a boy got in the way of T'Chaka, and that's how T'Chaka was killed. T'Challa
Oh.
was in danger. T'Chaka jumped in the way. Ulysses Klaue killed him, and that's why Klaue is such a. In the movie, it wasn't that kind of pronounced, but in the comics, Ulysses Klaue is a huge villain for Black Panther. Not just because he killed his father, but because he has a lot of connections to vibranium. His powers are interesting.
Mhm.
So definitely look at the show notes and check that out. I don't like how they treated Ulysses Klaue in the movie because he was just kind of like a one hit thing. It wasn't a big deal, but in the comics, he's a big deal.
I guess he technically killed T'Chaka. Is that his
T'Chaka,
name?
yeah.
Yeah, T'Chaka in the MCU too, right? Because he was responsible for that bomb,
No,
wasn't
not
he?
Ulysses Klaue.
He wasn't?
No, that was Zemo. He blew him up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Ziri, is the older. So if you remember the movie, in the movie, Ziri is this older man who's like he's the guy who runs the competition, the Black Panther competition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
played by Forrest Whitaker.
yeah, he's in the comics
I'm
as
not
well.
I don't like Forrest Whitaker.
What?
He overacts in everything that he's in.
Okay.
It's just overacting. That's all it is.
That's
I
the
can't
weirdest.
stand it.
I've never heard anyone say anything like that about Forrest Whitaker. I don't even know
Yeah.
anybody who has an opinion about him. That's hilarious. Okay, no, that's
Every time
okay.
he's announced as being in the cast of a movie, I'm like, oh man, please
That's
let it be a
so
small role.
That's
Yeah.
so crazy. Anyway, so Zuri, he's in the comics as well. He actually is kind of bigger, but he's kind of still has the same kind of stylings and ideas. The heart-shaped
Mhm.
herb is from the comics. The Dora
Yeah.
Milaje is from the comics. Shuri is from the comics. The Queen Mother. It's actually interesting. In the comics, T'Chaka married a woman, and then she had T'Challa, but then died, and then T'Chaka married someone else. So in the
Mm.
movie, they never said this, but in the movie, I'm assuming that is T'Challa's stepmother, not his real mother. They didn't
Mm.
say this in the movie, but in the
Right.
comics, that's definitely true.
Okay. Ramonda.
Yeah. Then you got Nakia's from the comics as well.
Who?
Okay, Nakia, she's like his love interest in the movie.
Oh, yeah, very small part. Right?
No, she's pretty big in
I
there.
mean, I guess she does fight a little bit in the end, but it's still pretty small. Like it's not as big as her sister.
It's
As his sister's
Lupita.
part.
It's Lupita Nyong'o. I can't pronounce it. It's Lupita. Like Lupita Nyong'o is one of the most beautiful people in the world. That's what everybody says. Like she's like a big part of the movie. She's the
I don't know
person
who
I
she
think.
is.
She's the. I'm looking at the IMDb right now. You saw her in the movie, right?
Yeah. But her like for a typical love interest in a movie, her character doesn't have a big role in this movie. Like I
Okay,
feel like
all
I
right.
feel like Shuri has a bigger role than she does in this one.
Okay. The actors can speak like 4 languages. It's really crazy. She's who I wish is going to be the new Black Panther. I wish they gave the role to her, but they probably won't.
They might.
They won't. They don't. Nobody does what I want. Okay, so this is actually a big one. Okay, so M'Baku. So you remember in the movie where they do the challenge day and these like people like
Hey,
these
before you move off of her, wasn't she in one of the Star Wars, like the recent trilogy? Didn't she play like some CGI character?
I have no idea.
All right, anyway. Sorry, I thought that was going to go somewhere.
She probably did. Anyway, so you remember doing challenge day when these kind of like African, like not all African, but like these kind of like gorilla people kind of came out of a cave to challenge Black Panther. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, like their idol was a gorilla.
Yeah. So this character is from the comics.
They had white dust on their backs, so they're like silverback gorillas.
Exactly. So that character, M'Baku, is based off of a comic book character called the Man Ape. So when it was announced that Black Panther was being made, and they announced that the Man Ape himself would be in the movie, and people got really nervous because in the comics, the Man Ape is a black dude wearing a gorilla suit. And if you know anything about African American culture, the idea of calling black people like monkeys or gorillas is a derogatory, like racist term.
Yeah.
And like it's been super racist that a man-ape existed ever in the first place. So, like, I remember, like, reading comics now, I'm
Like, was it
seeing
a
him.
full-on gorilla outfit?
Yes, it's terrible. Look at the show notes. It's like he's like he looks horrible, and like I've always been like, oh, the man ain't. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants him in the movie. What are they doing? But they did a brilliant job of taking him and making
Mhm.
him a really good character. They did
Right.
such a good job. They
Yeah.
explained the gorilla aspect of it. They explained and they made it so he was more of a human. They got to take all that racist stuff they've always had and they just kind of announced it, addressed it, and showed
Mhm.
it, and then moved on. And I think it's brilliant. I think I was so impressed when I saw that in the movie. That's when I realized they spent a lot of time on this because the comics it easily could have been bad, and it turned out that it wasn't. So I'm really glad
Yeah, he
they
was
did.
actually a pretty good character in the movie. I
He was
liked
great.
him a
He's probably
lot.
my favorite one. And he was a fan favorite too. Fans loved him too.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's just really good. Oh wait, Everett Ross, the only white person in this movie, basically.
Yeah.
Everett Ross is from the comics. He's from a Christopher. I don't think he's maybe not originally from the Christopher Priest comics, but he's hilarious. Everett Ross in the comics is so funny, so good.
Oh,
And
yeah?
I think this character kind of touches on him a little bit, but the Everett Ross from the comics is great. Please read some of the comics with him in it. It's really fantastic.
Played by
Uh,
Martin Freeman in this
yeah,
movie.
yeah. So, there is a Black Panther series by Christopher Priest that involves Mephisto. Do you remember who Mephisto is?
He's in the Spider-Man movie, right?
No.
Oh, then I don't remember.
Why would he? Mephisto? That's Mysterio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same first and last letter.
Same first and
Sound a
last
lot
letter.
alike. Yeah.
Mephisto is sort of like the devil in the comics, and so in
Okay.
in this Black Panther comic, Mephisto tries to get Black Panther to sell his soul, and the Black Panther like goes toe to toe with a demon. Basically, Mephisto is like best friends with Thanos, so it's really it could have been really cool. I love that series. It's really fantastic, and Black Panther is like so tough and so awesome. And in the comics, in the movies they kind of do this, but in the comics, Black Panther is probably the most um I wouldn't say arrogant, but when Black Panther's doing something, he's not going to make any mistakes. He's on it. He's really in control. He's really like into it. He can do it. He doesn't have a lot of like Spider-Man has a lot of anxiety. Daredevil has a lot of guilt stuff. And like Captain
Mhm.
America feels like I'm Captain America, this shield's so heavy, I have to carry the weight of America. And Black Panther's like, I'm Black Panther, I'm the best there is. Get out of my way. And it's
Yeah.
not like and it's never a moment. Well, there's some moments,
It's not
but
an arrogant way, at
yeah,
least in the
but
movie.
it's arrogance only in the sense that are you
I was saying
arrogant?
it's not played as arrogant.
No,
It's
no, no, no,
kinda
no, no. But
it's
they
like
don't do
a
that. They don't.
understated confidence in the movie.
Yes. This is not understated in the comics. It's overstated.
Okay.
So if you really like Black Panther and you like the movies, then definitely read the Christopher Priest series. I got a link into show notes. Ta-Nehisi Coates, which is a famous African American writer, he wrote the book. What was it called? Oh my goodness, I totally botched that. Anyway, Ta-Nehisi Coates, famous. He's fine. I like his writing. I think he's a little bit too heavy handed, and I feel like he is stressing too much. He needs to relax and have a drink once in a while. But it is what it is.
Mm.
But he writes some great Black Panther stories, fantastic Black Panther stories. So definitely check him out too. His graphic novel, get a couple of the graphic novels. It's really good. The Black Panther series, the Black Panther soundtrack, really good. Another Easter egg. Guess who Black Panther was married to in the
It's
comics?
not Nakia from the movie?
In the comics, no. Any guesses?
Mm.
Storm. He married Storm from the X-Men.
Oh, from the X-Men. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one that flies and like has crazy hair. And
Yeah, it's Storm. I mean, you know who Storm.
was
you
that
know
played
who
by
Storm
Halle
is.
Berry?
Yeah, it was played by Halle Berry in the X-Men movies. Yes, but you knew.
Okay.
But everybody knows. Am I the only one who knows who Storm is?
No,
You know,
I described her for you, didn't I?
Yeah, but I kind of
She
feel like when you mention Storm's name, I guess in comic books circles, he garners a certain level of respect.
Okay.
I get
I checked out of the X-Men movies
that's fair.
many years ago.
Storm's a really big character.
Yeah.
She's African origins. She met Black Panther a long time ago, and they ended up getting married. And at the time, I kind of feel like, you have Black Storm's a famous black character in the comics. Black Panther's a famous black character in the comics. They got married. Marvel, what are you doing? It
Mhm.
actually makes sense and works. And their love story was actually really good. Unfortunately, they got divorced. So pretty
Mm.
sad. I'm actually sad about that because, like, I don't know what it is about me and comic book marriages, but I'm really invested in them. Like when they don't work out, I get really sad. I don't
Right.
know why. I don't know why.
Was that before or after Nakia came into the picture?
I don't think Nakia was a love interest in the comics.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So just keep that in mind.
Ah, gotcha.
But yeah, Black Panther was a tremendous success. I think it was success culturally, but also it was success for Marvel in general. Like it was
I
just
mean,
like
kids in my son's elementary school at the time were doing like the Wakanda Forever
yeah.
um thing, you know. One time, I don't know if this was it may have been when Chadwick died. You know, all schools these days they all have a big rock by the school that they paint and stuff like that.
They do?
Yeah, it came from some comic strip, and now every school has a huge rock that you can paint almost.
I didn't know
So
that. That's
there's a
weird.
huge rock that you can paint at my kid's school.
Oh,
So
how
like kids
big's
will
the
paint it
rock?
for their. It's I say huge. I mean it's a big rock, but it's like let's say motorcycle size.
I think we had a rock too, but I don't think I cared about it. Well, anyway, so
So
the
like
school
these
painted
days,
it.
schools have a rock. Kids paint it for like their birthday. Like a kid can paint the rock for their birthday,
Yeah,
or their parents will paint it for their birthday or something like that.
yeah.
Or the school might paint the rock for like some kind of special announcement. Anyway, I don't remember if it was a kid's birthday or if it was around the time of Chadwick's death, but like the rock at my kid's school had Wakanda Forever. It was like painted all black and then had Wakanda Forever with the hands on it
Mm,
at some point. So
mm.
this movie has definitely, you know, spread throughout society pretty well.
Yeah, and like the biggest deal about this movie is like movies by a movie directed by a black director with a majority black audience doesn't fare well necessarily usually, and
Majority black
kind of
cast.
yeah, majority. I'm sorry. What did I say? Audience. Yeah, majority
Audience,
black
yeah.
cast and audience as well. But anyway, like it doesn't fare well usually. It doesn't do well. And I think this one did extremely well. And it also, I think without this movie, you wouldn't have Shang-Chi coming out soon because like I think Marvel thinks, and Marvel's a movie theater, right? They don't think about social justice issues. They're not socially conscious. They're money conscious. And at some
Hmm.
point, someone convinced them, hey, this will make a lot of money. And somehow Marvel's like, okay, we're going to do it, but I'm really nervous. And it worked. And like, they're okay, we can do that. We can, and like, and I hate that you have to make money in these endeavors in order to be successful and to do more things, but you do have to, right? And for Disney to do this and for it to be a tremendous like breakaway success, allowed them to do other kind of risky things. I don't think they haven't done risky things like this for like women yet. I mean, Black Widow, I don't think was the movie they wanted it to be. But we'll have to wait and see how Shang-Chi does. And I think Shang-Chi's going to do really, really well. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if people are going to risk their lives to go see it in the theater. Uh, but I think this movie was important not for culture as well. But at the same time, it has the same trappings of every movie. I mean, you could predict the beats, you know, like and like the hero always wins and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It is what it is. You can't really get away with it. But overall, I think it was pretty good. The one thing I didn't like about this movie was the CGI rhinos. I did not like them.
CGI rhinos.
The big
Oh,
fight
during
scene,
that battle in the field.
yeah,
Yeah.
this wasn't. I was like,
I thought it was fairly good.
yeah, but
Just
but
weren't believable enough for you or what?
no, I just didn't care. I mean, I was like, it's
Okay.
fine. It was like it was fine. It is what it is. But as a
Rhinos
Marvel
are
movie
yeah.
as a Marvel movie that didn't have any other Marvel characters but him, it was great. So yeah, wait,
Yeah, I mean, I go back to Ant-Man and
Mhm.
how much they fought Edgar Wright over that, and now I think 2 of our favorite Marvel movies have been completely standalone movies where they don't have other Marvel characters forced into them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
That's this
yeah.
movie and Doctor Strange.
Yeah, this movie didn't have well, Doctor Strange kind of they had to incorporate the time gem into it. But this movie had
Yeah, but that's
nothing.
not like that's,
Yeah.
uh, you
But
know.
this movie has almost nothing to do with the overall Thanos story. So yeah. Oh, one more thing. There is a white wolf. So this is where I come up, I think, in a second when you talk about the end credits.
Mhm.
Apparently T'Chaka adopted. There was a plane crash, and there was a white child in the plane, and T'Challa's father adopted him, and he became the White Wolf, and he became sort of like an assassin for Wakanda. He had like a white wolf outfit on,
Hmm.
and that kind of takes us to the end credits. The one of
Yeah,
the end credit scenes.
what kind of a, outfit on?
It's like a white. It's like take the Black Panther suit, but paint
Uh-huh.
it white, and that's what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
But
Hmm.
in the end credit scene, you have you want to talk about.
Let's do the mid-credit one first.
You go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Alright, so yeah, there's mid-credits for this one, then there's an end-credit scene. The mid-credit is they're back at the UN,
Hmm.
and T'Challa comes in and he gives this really nice speech, but one key part of it is that Wakanda will no longer watch from the shadows.
Hmm.
They're going to be a fully integrated part of the world, and they're going to help people out with their technology. Really hope that goes well for them because having like the only source on the planet of a very precious metal usually doesn't go well for people, but I guess they can defend themselves pretty well.
If you saw Avengers: Infinity War, they created a giant force field and fought off thousands of monsters pretty much by themselves. So yeah, I think they can. I think they'll be okay.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and from a storytelling perspective, I don't think they would have done that if they couldn't have protected themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything you want to say about that mid credit scene?
No, it's in the comics. It's the same kind of idea. T'Challa does the same thing, and
Now, did they do that before the MCU started up, or was
way,
it?
way before the MCU started up.
Oh, okay,
So
cool.
everybody in Marvel Comics knows that the Wakanda is like the most technologically advanced place on the earth.
Okay.
But there has been some crazy wars in the comics. They had war with Doctor Doom that which is just fantastic, and ended up T'Challa had to destroy all the vibranium so Doctor Doom wouldn't have it. So I'm not sure if that's still the case, but in the comics there was a point where there was no vibranium in Wakanda at all because
Wow.
he had to destroy it. Yeah. Mhm.
Hmm.
And there's also some stuff with Atlantis, which is a big deal. He fought kind of like a pseudo war with Namor, and like Namor, Doctor Doom, and Black Panther sort of have like kind of a three-way sort of like Cold War scenario where all three of them constantly kind of battle or deal with each other, which I think is really interesting. Um, and there's been some other things as well, like the T'Challa, the Black Panther, um, was part of a group called the Illuminati that we'll probably talk about at some point. Was like a secret organization that deals with all kinds of stuff. He was in charge of the Avengers for a while, so they've used the Black Panther quite a bit in the Marvel comics, way more in the movies. So they've done a lot of work with him. He's a pretty massive character in the comics right now.
Hmm. Cool.
And
Are
then you
you
got
ready for the end credit?
yeah. Go ahead.
I'm gonna let you hit this one all by yourself.
So in the end credits, you have some children looking at a guy, and they run away. They run away and call him the White Wolf. And out comes Sebastian Stein, aka Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. He's been in Wakanda. He's healing. He doesn't have an arm, but the last time we saw him was in Civil War, and now he's trying to get all this stuff out of his head. And the Wakandans are healing him. And there you go. Awesome.
Earlier in the movie, there's a nod to Bucky Barnes. Do you know what it
Yeah.
is?
They
Okay.
said another white boy to fix, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, really, really funny.
That's Shuri says that when
Yeah,
Everett K. Ross needs to be brought into
mhm.
Wakanda to
Really,
help
really
repair
funny.
his body,
Um, but
save
like,
his life.
so like, I think they call him the White Wolf, but in the comics, he's definitely not that. But there is a tradition in the comics of having like a European with like that skin tone
Mhm.
as a special agent for Wakanda because they can't do it, right? And so it's kind of it's in the. I wish the movie and I wish the TV shows would do more with this. Like I want.
Do you think they were like that was one of the branches they were possibly going to go down, and then just
Yeah,
decided to change their mind? And
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that they're still even like I have a fantasy that of Winter Soldier, Agent of Wakanda series. You know, like that'd be so much cool. Like if Bucky has to go to Wakanda and help them do something, that'd be so awesome. But I mean, I'm just kind of like hoping. Who knows if that's going to happen? But they
Hmm.
could. So we did see. I mean, the Dora Milaje did show up in Captain America. I mean, Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I mean, why not show them up, show them more? So we'll have to wait and see.
Right.
I thought it was really cool though, and I think everybody likes the potential of it more than the actual thing that happened. So it's really good. Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah. Doesn't really set us up for any future movie the way some of these scenes do.
It sets us up mildly. Like it's, I think Black Panther is super important because when they saw how successful Black Panther was, they actually created more of a role for them in Avengers Infinity War. So
Hmm.
so when they first did it, the Wakandans were going to be there, but not be that big. But I mean, the Infinity War came out really pretty recently after Black Panther. I think, right?
It
Yes.
is. It's 4 movies ahead.
Really?
So we've
So
got 3
soon.
movies between
Yeah.
Black Panther and
Okay.
Avengers: Infinity War.
But Black Panther, like, everybody saw Black Panther, right? And so by showing that Black Panther and the Wakandans would be in Infinity War, they're
Hmm.
like capitalizing on that. Like, did you like Black Panther in this movie? He's will be
Hmm.
in another movie, you know. So I think that works in their favor. I think it worked out very well. I think that the
There's no great way to fit them into either Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider
no,
Man, or Thor. Yeah.
no. But they definitely fit in Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. So it worked out for everybody involved. It's great.
Right.
Wonderful. It's probably, I will say this right now. It's not my favorite Marvel movie, but it is, I would say, my second or third favorite, and it is definitely the most true to the comics. And I think it's the most respectful to the comic lore, the comic stuff. 100%.
If you had to think of one example of that, like what can you give for how it pays respect to the comics?
It's like they didn't make anything up for the movie. Like they didn't change anything. They took all these resources from the comics that's great and just took them into the movie and used them in such a way that makes sense and honors what they did in the comics. So if you read the comics and you watch this movie, you're like, this is awesome. This is exactly what I read in the comics, but it's in
Mhm.
movie form. Brilliant, right?
There's
Like if
no
you read the
character
comic,
in here that totally isn't in the
no,
comics.
no,
Yeah.
no. That's the
Okay.
great thing. There's nothing in this movie that you would watch as a comic fan be like, well, that's not right. Like none of that. So it's really good.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
The only one that might, I think, M'Baku could be the only one that's different, but he's different in a good way. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. From what you described, that's definitely different in a good way.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the cast right now, and I do see that they have a couple of people that are credited as River Tribe Elder and Mining Tribe Elder. So I'm gonna have to rewatch this movie now, hearing what you said about that in this podcast, and hopefully that'll give me like a little bit of a better flavor of how Wakanda as a country actually kind of works.
And also, I mean, I've been asking you to read the comics for a while. Reading a couple of Black Panther comics wouldn't hurt you. It's like reading like one or two.
Now you're
Uh,
giving me too. You're giving me too much of a backlog. I've got the zombie stuff, and then maybe Civil War.
I would read
Yeah,
the zombie stuff first.
yeah.
Yeah, you know what? This is a challenge to you, Mike. Read the zombie stuff first, and then when the zombie what if comes out, you can be the one that tells me about it
Oh man,
because I
you did
haven't read
that,
the
didn't
zombie
you?
stuff.
You just did that.
Yeah, I did. That's a challenge. I think it's a great challenge.
Yeah. Any idea when that's going to be coming up and what if?
No, it's gonna be a while. You got like
Yeah.
probably 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, I figure that's probably one of the end ones. Okay. Huh. All right, cool. Next up, we're going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Ugh.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Kind of with you on that.
Oh man. Oh
Man,
man.
when the Guardians of the Galaxy came out, I loved it. I was all in on Guardians of the Galaxy. So I was super excited for Volume 2, and I don't know what it was. It just didn't hit me the same way.
We have a lot to talk about though. There are some big comic book stuff in there.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's like some huge comic book stuff. So okay, I can do it. But as a side note, and I want to apologize to two things. I want to apologize to the Eternals, and I want to apologize to our listeners.
Uh-oh.
I started reading Jack Kirby's The Eternals, like the
Yeah.
old one from the 60s. It's really good. It's really
Mm.
good. The comic's really good. I mean, it's a Jack Kirby comic, so it's super old, but it's so good. And if they do anything close to what he was doing, it's going to be brilliant. So I'm just going to shut up about Eternals.
Well, I mean, still nobody knows who they are. So
No,
I mean,
no
you
one
haven't
else
said
has read those
anything.
comics. No one
You
else
didn't
has read
say
those
they were
comics.
horrible comics. You just said that nobody knows who they are.
That's true. But now that I've read the comics, I'm actually kind of excited to watch the movies.
Wow.
Which is crazy. I know, but I read it. I just read 2 issues, and first of all, Jack Kirby is so good. Like, it's so good. Like you would think that storytelling and comic book storytelling in general would be dated, and like the
Mm-hmm.
stuff they did in the 60s would be like worse than we do now. But I don't know why I think that, because there's brilliant novels that were written in the 60s and 70s that
Yeah.
are way better than any of the crap we're writing now. So Jack Kirby's comics were just out of this world amazing. And so I'm hyped about Eternals now, because once that comes out, I'll be able to just like barf out all this comic stuff to you. So
Wow.
it'll be
Okay. Have
great.
you been dipping into Shang-Chi?
Not yet. Not yet. I need to. I need to.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Do you know if you go see it? Yeah, not.
I'm thinking probably not, because they're saying they're only going to do it in theaters, and I have a kid that's too young to
Yeah.
get vaccinated. So
I have an idea for that. So I'll talk to you off stage about that. I have an idea how we can work that. Maybe.
Okay, cool.
All right, I think we're done. Mike, where can people listen to us talk about this stuff?
If you can't find us in your favorite podcast app, let us know on Twitter at Super Sideshow. We'll fix that. We're everywhere you can find podcasts. We're even on YouTube.
And if you're on YouTube, Mike's done this great job of having these little like short little like 1 minute YouTube clips of us talking. I love those clips, Mike. They're great. They're fun. They're fun to listen to.
Yeah,
You
I've put a few on Twitter recently too, like really really short clips as well.
Yeah, they're fun. That's great stuff. Thank you.
Yep.
And also you can I've been having some comic book stuff discussions on Twitter, so you can find me at jslacks on Twitter. And I don't know if we've talked about this, Mike. Do we want a Reddit presence or not? Is that something that could happen?
I don't
Reddit?
really do Reddit that much. I do have an account. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, we kind of that's something. But yeah, so find us. We're not
Are
on
you a big
Facebook.
Reddit guy?
I'm bigger than I want to be. I'm bigger than I want to be.
That's my relationship with Twitter.
Yeah, oh, that's the same. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, next movie is going to be Guardian of the Galaxy Volume 2. We still haven't done a Spider-Man movie yet. Like, what's taking so long?
Yeah, one more.
Ugh,
Spider-Man's
okay.
coming up.
Ready for it. Ready for it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Before we go, you just listened to Super Sideshow talking about Black Panther. If you enjoyed this podcast, hit the share button right now. Share it with a friend.
Share it.
Do it.
Share it with 2 friends, 3 friends.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Thanks, everyone.